So she was not sure what the status was on that, but she did text me last night that she will try to join. Can I get board members to unmute themselves?
David is unmuted.
Brian here.
Good morning.
Diana. Good morning. I saw Mary Ann a little bit ago. I think she's in there somewhere.
Yep, I'm here.
Kevin is here.
Kevin in too?
Kevin is here.
I see you there. Do I have a motion, or I'd like to call the meeting to order? Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved, Brian.
Brian moved. Who is second?
Mary Ann.
Thank you, Mary Ann. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Let's go ahead and move on to the management update. Steve, you want to go ahead and give us an update on the reopening?
Yes, good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Okay,
All
good. Let me start with, on Monday, we reopened a few facilities within the community. I'll start with 851 building. 851 building was open for business, and we have averaged anywhere between 10 to 20 people coming into the building a day, mostly ARC applications and questions for ARC. A few people getting updated cards, but really low business coming through town hall, again, spread out anywhere between 10 and 20 a day. Dog park reopened, excuse me, on Monday, and a little bit of issues with the gates first thing Monday morning. Those were corrected immediately, and the rest of the week they've been working fine. I've been out to the dog park numerous times. We've had a monitor out at the dog park, and the crowds I haven't seen any more than maybe 10 people in the dog park at a time, with plenty of space out there and plenty of spacing. People seem to be respecting the 6-foot social distancing rule. The dogs, on the other hand, are mingling and playing with each other full time. They seem like they're very happy with being able to be back out in the open. So tennis courts opened on Monday also. And again, I've been by the tennis courts quite a few times this week. I know Nikki and Cameron and her team have been through these facilities a lot also. But we do have a monitor at the tennis courts and in that area. And tennis court usage seems to be about normal. We have regular scheduled programming going on. People, again, practicing social distancing. I know Darren, our tennis pro, is out there following the USTA guidelines. So seems like tennis courts and dog park are working fine. Open fields throughout the community. There's 50 plus pocket neighborhood parks throughout the community. And the activities that I've seen throughout the week are spread out. Mostly families just throwing the ball together, kicking a ball, and having picnics out. So seems like since we opened on Monday, the residents are reasonably utilizing facilities, and they're following the guidelines that we have set in place. So so far so good with the reopening.
Thank you, Steve. Any questions from the board with regards to this?
Yeah, this is Brian. I got one question, please, Steve. How about staff ramp up? I mean, everybody's busy. Everybody's got back into the flow quickly, pretty easily. Any comments there at all?
Yep, everyone's back to the office. So we are utilizing full staff, and everybody's got their regular workloads going on. We are doing the minimized inspections on just major issues right now. But we still do have an inspector going throughout the community. So right now, everybody's ramped up and back to a full workload.
Thank you.
Any other from the board?
Yeah, one other question, Steve. This is David. As we move forward with these, I hope you'll continue the same sort of monitoring and same sort of reporting in terms of usage and you know, how residents are responding. That will be helpful in the weeks to come.
Yep, absolutely. As I stated last Friday, we're not out enforcing, we're out monitoring, and we're bringing back the report to the board. And as long as residents work within the guidelines that the boards have set, these facilities can remain open and they can remain to be used. And that's good because we've been locked in our houses for the past month and a half. So we just continue to ask everyone respect the guidelines that have been set. And if we continue moving in the direction that we had this week, I can see that continuing to happen.
Good, thank you.
Any other board comment? For those of you that are on residents, I'd like to just make a quick comment. Thank you all for participating. We have 36 on here. We have to exclude the board members and things like that, but we appreciate seeing new faces and new participation. I believe I see a lot of people on video. If there's anybody that has a comment with regards to these, we're trying to make sure that residents are heard. We don't have a specific protocol on this, but we've been trying to fall in line with, if we have an item on, we try to fall in line with what we've been doing for our workshops, and that is if there is something that is on the agenda and we're discussing it, once the board has actually had their say and their feedback and questions, we've been opening it up to residents. I'll go ahead and open that up now.
Vanessa, it looks like Laurel has her hand up. Is Vanessa still on? Patrick, are you still on? Can you guys hear me?
Okay, now, okay, yeah, I'm unmuted.
I can hear
Oh, there you
you.
go.
I just unmuted
Okay.
Laurel.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll just jump in quickly. It was just more of a thank you for sort of starting slowly, monitoring things, taking the community's feedback on safety concerns and group size. And again, especially the monitoring as we start to open things, see what's working, what isn't, are people social distancing, et cetera. Later in the agenda, I'll come back around. I'd like to, speak on the social stuff, because I think that gets a little bit harder. I feel like the dog park is a great place to start, because sensibly speaking, I think most people are more willing or able, or it makes more sense for them to socially distance. Sometimes the downtown, and I know there were a lot of threads this week on that, can be a little bit harder when you're talking social gatherings, whether it's restaurants, or I know the farmers market, et cetera, is on there. So anyway, just mostly a thank you, and I appreciate the monitoring and the updates on it. So that's it.
I'm back. Sorry about that. My connection failed. Gotta love it. Internet at its finest. And we have 3 of them, and one of so it makes it even worse. Okay. I'm not sure where you're at. So David, next, any other public comment? Perfect. Do you want to go ahead and move on then to the pool reopening?
Sure. Last Friday at the meeting, the update meeting of the board of directors appointed Kevin, Diana, and Vanessa to meet with me and staff to determine some guidelines and some recommendations for a phased pool reopening plan. So we have that. And Patrick, I don't know if you can pull the pool plan up on the screen here so I can go through it.
Just give me 1 second.
Sure.
Is it this?
That's the monitor. If you can go to it's the 1-page phase 1 pool reopening guidelines that JR submitted.
Got it.
There it is. Okay. So what was discussed during this meeting is, first we really looked at what is the governor saying with his phase plan, and it's kind of silent when it comes to pools. Osceola County, again, has no additional guidelines on top of what the governor's guidelines are. So we looked at CDC and Florida Health Department, and we got some guidelines for how we came about this plan. So what we determined through lots of discussion was to look at trying to reopen the pools on Monday, May 11th. And one of the topics of conversation was, do we just open a couple pools, or do we open all the pools and try and kind of disperse the people throughout the different pools? And Kevin brought up maybe we should be working with condos and with the apartments to try and open as many pools as we can and encourage residents to use the pools that are closest to their house. Because pool capacity, when we get to that section, is going to be a very important part of how we open. If we can't keep the capacity low and we can't keep the social distancing, the pool reopening plan is not going to be successful. We're going to have to revisit it. So reopening pools, it was decided to recommend having the pools open their regular time from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. With the exception of Spring Park, which continues to operate half hour after sunrise and half hour before sunset for that schedule. When it comes to capacity, we looked at all the numbers of the different pools, and Patrick, if you could scroll down, the group that met is recommending 50% capacity. So as you can see, there's the numbers there in front of you that show what the capacity is for each one of those pools. We will have monitors that will be going throughout the pools and wiping down the furniture that's out, wiping down the bathrooms, and just keeping an eye on these numbers and informing residents that we need to stay at this capacity. We're also going to have signs out that say what the capacity at each one of the pools is. And we have cameras that are on each one of the pools also. So if the pools turn into a crazy party scene and there's people wrestling on top of each other and not abiding by the 6-foot social distancing, we have plenty of opportunity to capture that. And then again, if we can't meet these capacity levels, the board will have to revisit whether or not those pools stay open. So you can see the capacity numbers there. We talked about only putting 25% of the furniture out at the pools to ensure that we keep the 6-foot distance guidelines. And as we move into different phases of the plan, we can continue to put more furniture out, but to start with only 25%. We also talked about putting in some at-risk hours in place, and those would be Monday and Wednesday. And for at-risk, we'll get a little bit more clarification when we actually promote this out through our social media, through our Friday Flash. But at-risk would be for senior citizens, those that maybe feel like they're at a higher risk of contracting anything as they get back out of their houses. We want to give them an opportunity, a lot like Publix and some of the other stores are doing for early hour shopping. So that's what the at-risk hours would be. We also have some lap lanes, but there's very few lap lanes. So we would ask that at this time, through the initial reopening phase, that all lap lane usage be by reservation only. And you can go right onto our RecPro site through this link that we have here, and you can register for lap lane time. We're going to do lap lane time by the hour. So you can register for an hour of lap lane time. And then again, we have signs throughout the entire community. We have hand sanitizer stations, and we'll have those out at the pools. But we'll ask that as people are using these facilities, please keep following those guidelines of safety. If you're wearing a mask, keep your mask on until you get into the pool. Make sure that you're following the 6-foot social distancing. No groups of larger than 10 congregated in one area. And then proper hand washing techniques. And if you're sick, if you have any symptoms at all, please stay home, avoid using the facilities, because if any cases are reported and known in any of our facilities, we'll have to shut them down and do complete cleaning. So we ask if anybody's sick that they please stay home and avoid the pool areas. So unless there's anything I missed, if Kevin, Diana, Vanessa want to add anything to that, that's the recommendations that we're bringing to the board today to reopen the pools.
I'll open this.
So,
go ahead, Kevin.
I'd like to just make a couple of comments, and Diana and Vanessa, please feel free to jump in, as we both all dedicated some time in working on this plan. I did go ahead, and there were some questions I know from both Brian and I believe a comment from David that happened via email. I was waiting on a couple of comments to see if there was anything from Marianne. Thankfully, there was not, but I'm happy to hear those today. But when I did start looking at the plan that was shared by management to the board based on the conversation, it didn't, from what I recall, reflect to be entirely accurate. And it could be a simple confusion, just there's a lot going on, as we all know. I was under the impression that we were going to aim to ensure that there is a park monitor, in essence, a gatekeeper, if you will, at each of the pools. That would assist in limiting those numbers. And when the concern was, how do we actually enforce, or for lack of a better term, kick people out, right? To go ahead and ensure it's fair, or as fair as possible for everybody. We discussed a close down perhaps after a 2-hour segment for an hour of wipe down cleaning of furniture and facilities, and then open it back up. And if people arrive during that time frame, they would go ahead and be advised that, I'm sorry, pool is at capacity right now. It is first come, first serve, or however we want to go ahead and best analyze that. I think at least for the first week of opening, I do believe that we need boots on the ground, and I will stay firm on that one. And I also believe that we need to go ahead and create some kind of a schedule that allows that rotation of residents as well as a proper cleaning in between residents during those timeframes. So I don't know if Diana or Vanessa, do you have any comments on that? If I misunderstood something?
Oh, go ahead, Diana, go ahead. And then after Diana, I can open up to the board for their comments too. Diana?
I agree. I'd like to see, I know, Steve, you put together the monitoring schedule. I think we need to have, at least for the first, let's get this open and let's see how it goes, a lot more actual people monitoring what's going on. So we can kind of, I think we need to work on that schedule a little bit more. One thing I did notice, I think the lap lane reservation, we need to put some hours on that because we're not going to have the lap lanes for reservation all day, I don't believe. So maybe you attach some hours to that. And then do we have the mock-ups on the signing yet? What they're going to actually say and how big they're going to be and what the plan is on where you're going to place those? Now, question would be for Steve.
Yep, there are signs at each one of the kiosks and throughout the pools. We can certainly increase the signage if we need to, but it's about the best practices, social distancing, how to wash your hands, how to put your mask on and off, those types of things. We are going to put the capacity signs out that say this is the number of people that can use the pool. Between the two monitors during the day, 2 monitors in the evening, and then during the day, Nikki and Cameron and myself rotating through those pools, plus we have cameras on each one of the pools, we can certainly keep an eye and ensure that we have the capacity. As I've stated before, and I'll state again, monitors are monitors, they're not enforcers. So we will be able to notify people, but if there's residents that are not able to get in because we're at capacity, monitors don't have a lot of enforcement power. We can't really lock the gates and lock people in. So in my opinion, my recommendation is best practice is if it's being abused, shut them back down again. But it's a bad situation to put monitors in to have them trying to enforce how many people are in the pool or not in the pool. But the plan that I put in front of everybody and for the park monitor schedule gives us sufficient coverage. We have enough eyes on the pool, really, especially when we first get going, to ensure that we're at the capacity numbers that we're looking for.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, I have 2 comments. I had sent an email yesterday, and what I was really about camera coverage, and Steve and I spoke yesterday, because I understand, and that's the reason I asked the question before about his staff, fully staffed and busy, and I understand we have several pools, but I would hope then, and I throw this out for the group, that, if we have the camera coverage properly working with a lot of coverage, and we can have Steve or Susan or Nick or somebody, Patrick, pick your person, who can every once in a while be checking cameras along with people driving around, we should have a good situation. I agree with park monitors kicking people out. It's a very difficult thing, but I was hoping that we could almost use the cameras as observation, security, and if there's a problem person or 2, we can actually see it. We've got it recorded. We can, if it were a teenager, for example, we could talk to a parent then or something like that. And then the other thing, so that was one idea. And the second thing is I do worry about somebody just coming and saying, there's only 23 people out here. I'm going to camp out at 8 and I'm going to stay till they close the thing. I think there needs to be rotation, fairness. So, the idea that you'd have a pool open for 2 hours, 3 hours, pick some period, shut it down for a half hour, rotate people, and you do that for a week or something and you'll learn, we'll figure out quickly enough if we've got 1,000 people want to swim or 100 people who want to swim across these pools, and if there's an issue or not an issue. But those are 2 ideas I had.
Thank you. Any other board members before I speak?
Vanessa, real quick while the board members are coming on, would it be feasible to, since we're opening and the condos that have pools, the apartments that have pools, we reached out to them, if there's enough capacity? I mean, I'm not seeing the facilities that were just reopened overwhelmed with people. Does it make sense for us to try and open? And if we do see a huge influx of people, then we could move to a scheduling system for who can use the pool at what time, or determine pools need to be closed down at certain times and get a little bit more strict. But we thought going into dog park and tennis courts that they were going to be overrun, and they just weren't this week.
Yeah, but this is Brian. I think adults use the dog park and adults use the tennis courts. Kids are going to go swimming. I will be shocked if we don't have a lot of mothers with 2 kids or 3 kids who don't want to take the kids out swimming for a couple hours. I would expect it. It burns energy. It's good exercise and stuff like that. So I would expect it to be different.
I think it's definitely a great opportunity for people to get out of their house and get some exercise and get some activity. But I think we're seeing a lot too. People are still reluctant to go and engage in those type of social settings. So we still have a balance of those that just aren't comfortable yet getting out of their houses.
Which is why I brought up the issue of the cameras, because I personally would feel very comfortable that we have the cameras, that we're constantly testing, monitoring, recording, because then we can sit here and somebody can come back and say, you know, because I'm using Nikki as an example. Nikki could be working in her office and also have a camera on, and I don't know exactly how your cameras work, but, you know, sit there and say, yeah, there's 11 people in this pool and it's no issue at all. And oh my gosh, there's 60 people over here. We need to have somebody drive by.
Anyone else?
I do have just one follow-up,
Go ahead.
Vanessa.
Yep.
And again, I'm happy to go ahead and hear what your feedback and interpretation was of our calls.
Yep.
Because we had multiple calls and we did spend several hours discussing this. A week ago, I actually specifically requested management, what is your plan? What is your idea? What are other CCMC communities doing? And I was told management for each community does as the board directs them. They are not in the position to make a recommendation on this item. So we sat, we reviewed all options, how to do this in a fair way in the best position for the entire community. And I guess my concern is that we did go ahead and come up with what seemed to be a plan, the 3 of us, with discussion and advice from both Mike and from Steve and from Nikki. And I guess my big surprise is that I was under the impression we were going to go ahead and do those 2-hour increments so we can go ahead and have that cleaning. I'd be very intrigued to hear how the cleaning is going to occur without the turnover within the pool. I'm very intrigued to hear what the difference would be of having somebody stand outside the gate. I'm just asking for a week. I'm not asking forever, so we can understand data and results. To stand outside that gate and go ahead and actually keep a number and keep a tally of how many people are frequenting the pool. And is there an issue? I'm not expecting any enforcement. I'm expecting a inform, not enforce. And as they enter, hey, welcome to the pool today. Please keep in mind that, you know, you are entering at 10 a.m. This pool is actually set up for 2 hours. Welcome, you just came in at the beginning of the 2 hours. At noon, we're going to ask everybody to leave with their belongings. We're going to clean the facilities, the bathrooms, the chairs, the handrails, everything, and welcome you back at 1 o'clock, first come, first serve to the 50%. So if I'm misunderstanding, that's, I guess, my big concern. I'm a little confused where things have changed.
Vanessa, do you mind if I respond quickly?
Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second, Steve.
Yeah.
My recollection is twofold. When we talked about having the staff there all the time, my recollection is we said this is what we were thinking. Have staff go back, evaluate their staffing, see what they can and can't do realistically, and then get back with us in the plan. So, so yes, I do believe that both you and Diana had shared that you wanted to, that your goal was to make sure that we had somebody there on site. But my feedback or my recollection was it was back to Steve and saying, hey, how can we make this work? Do we have the staffing to be able to do it? Can we shift people? And then get back with us. So that was my recollection. So if I have a different recollection, I apologize. That said, we did make it clear that we would like to have somebody there, but please check to see what's feasible. Diana, is that, I don't remember exactly how you're.
Yeah, I think my expectation was at least to have someone park, you know, I don't want to say park there, but there more hours than what Steve has put on the schedule. I'm afraid just the drive-by check-in isn't going to be enough. I mean, let's try it for a couple days. I'm sure we could staff it. I mean, I'm hoping Steve can come up with someone to staff it for the first couple days, and let's see how it goes. I mean, if that's going to be too much coverage and we don't need someone there, we don't need someone there. I think our residents are very educated on what social distancing is. It's going to be difficult in the pool. But I think we do need to have, at least for, at least to give me my sense of security in opening the pool, that we have someone there to be our eyes and ears and help us, not with enforcement, but with education of the residents until they get used to the new plan. I do like what Brian said about closing the pool down every whatever in increments to allow them to wipe everything down, because wiping everything down is going to be difficult when the chairs are occupied and the bathrooms are being used. So it wouldn't take long to wipe it down if they closed it for a half hour. We used to, when someone mentioned it in the comments, they used to have adult swim when I was a kid. And all the adults would swim, all the kids would leave and go relax. And that gave the pool a chance to kind of empty out a bit. So I would be definitely in favor of that to add to this proposal. But I would like to see more coverage.
Did you?
I'm going to, just really quick, I'm going to address, Steve had made a comment regarding the pool furniture. We actually did discuss that in our little group. And our concern about having other people bring in their pool furniture was what happens if they bring in their rusty chairs, or all of a sudden you have everybody bringing in their own things. And now all of a sudden you don't have the 25% furniture, but you got furniture spread out all over the place. And we would not have the ability to do that. So Steve, we did actually discuss that, and because we have read that there is some people that are just saying bring in your own, and we just felt that from a liability aspect and from a cleaning aspect, what happens if they ruin the pool deck with their stuff? How does that work? So that's where we were at on that conversation, but we did discuss that. Thank you. Any other comments?
David?
From the board?
Yep.
Go ahead, David. And then I see that Jerry and Celia both have their hands up, and I will get to you as soon as we get the board comments. Go ahead, please, David.
Yeah, just a couple of reflections. As I shared last week, I'm anxious to get things open, but I'm not in a rush. We need to do this right, not with any particular timetable. So when this was being set up, one of the things I suggested to the committee is look at conditions under which a reopening of the pools might occur. And that's what we have here. And I'm going to comment on a couple of those. And the other was looking at the timeline. So what is the timeline? I am not, and again, I'm looking forward to reopening. I'm not in a rush. I look forward to swimming again, but I'm not in a rush. So to me, it's, the lifestyle piece takes second priority to life. There was a comment earlier about condos. We had one of our guiding principles last week was sharing all of our, what we decide with other entities. And I think that would include condos, and just sharing it with them. Here's what we're deciding, and here's what we're deciding, and you make your own decisions. So two broad things. One is on the specifics. When I look at the guidelines, there were three things that came out to me. One is the furniture. I'm reading documents of CDC. Of course, CDC documents are in flux, but I'm reading things that say that it's the sunbathing part where people get close. So my suggestion as a condition is have no furniture. Don't bring any, just have none. The pools are there. Sunbathing you can do elsewhere, but for the pools, I mean, I love to do the sunbathing and get in the pool and so forth, but pools are for the water. Second is for any wiping down, also encourage with our signage. There's a lot of self-responsibility. In my own working out for probably 20 years, I have wiped down equipment before and after use. So that's SOP for me. So I think we all need to take that self-responsibility. Yes, we will do our part, but what we do will not guarantee, full cleanliness. We'll do everything we can do which is reasonable, also maintaining the safety of employees, but also encourage self-responsibility in that. Third, and this ties into the numbers of people, we should strongly encourage self-monitoring of the numbers. So if Lakeside is 53, people should monitor and do a quick count, and 53, 52, but just do a real quick count. And and of course we have our park monitors and we have the cameras. If that's not working, then we close things down. you know, the self-monitoring didn't work. So one of our policies is if it doesn't work, we close it down and then we'll revisit. So all these policies are in flux. And I'll save some other comments as we get to the other things, but I think it's time-wise for opening this. I do not think these policies are ready to go live Monday. And I also think it's too early with things in flux. You know, with national data, and you know, our national plan calls for 2 weeks of decline, and we're not seeing that. And we as a state are just reopening, and you know, why not wait a couple more weeks and see what happens with our cases? We'll see. But anyway,
thank you, David. And
specific and broad.
Thank you, Debbie. You had a comment also.
Yeah, I just wanted to reinforce what David said, and I thank you and Kevin and Diana for the work. But I think my expression was we did need more staff there and a way to monitor this. And I think the plan is good. I think it may just need a little more work. A lot of the capacity recommendations for reopening were 25%. So is the 50% too much at Lakeside? You know, again, it's something where you guys, but I think we need to reinforce this a little bit with management's recommendations. Thank you.
Thanks, Debbie. I'll open it to the.
This is Mary Ann.
Oh, go ahead, Mary Ann. I'm sorry.
Sorry. Well, I've been pretty quiet because I'm trying to, I think it was probably clear at the last meeting, my approach based on my professional experiences I'm having right now is probably much more conservative than is palatable for the community at this juncture. So I want to first commend you guys because I think the framework of this plan is very well conceived and well done. Perhaps some compromises that could be lived with would be the furniture at 25% capacity being really more about tables and chairs and removing the sunbathing furniture. That might be a compromise. And I would agree with other statements that have been made that I would like to see a little higher level of monitoring, if at all possible, in the initial phases. I'm trying to seek a compromise within myself that is palatable to what the residents are asking for, but also as the guidelines and things that David was referencing are very real. And I know that I'm inclined to have a much more cautious approach, but I wanted to commend this work, and I think it is definitely framed nicely and definitely in the right direction. And I'm still pondering about that opening date. I just need to be honest about that. So that's all I have to say right now.
Thank you, Mary Ann. Any other comments from the board before I open it up to residents? Okay. Jerry, I'm unmuting you.
All right, hi.
You are all set, Jerry?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good.
Gerald Barr, 1138 Mosaic Drive. I think I'm the only qualified medical professional on this call. If you remember, I am living here 3 years full-time. I work as a hospitalist at Celebration Hospital. And before that, I was the director of intensive care at Lenoxville Hospital, which is a major teaching hospital in New York City. Couple of comments. Number one, I am for reopening things in a reasonable, rational, prudent way. 2, getting data back on these openings. 3, any institutions that have opened things or that are open have schedules for cleaning, whether it's Publix, Celebration Hospital, or Amazon. The way this is worded, well, we'll do some cleaning, is, in my opinion, unsatisfactory. The other thing is that I think initially you need more monitors, and there's a lot of young people, kids that, not kids, seniors in high school that would like some part-time work for a week that could get us information relative to what's going on at the pools. I will have other comments relative to some of the other things on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you. Celia, you are unmuted, Celia.
Oh, hi, Vanessa. I just want to thank you guys. Everything sounds like you have put a lot of time and effort into this. But I just have one question. On the capacity for the residents, can we maybe try to enforce that it's residents only and not residents bring guests into the pool?
Oh, that's interesting. We didn't even discuss that. Okay, thank you for that suggestion. We can add that into our comments today. Thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Any other comments from residents? I see. I'm going to need some help from the board if there's anybody waving their hands. Anyone else?
No one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. So a couple of suggestions that we've had here so far is doing the 2-hour break and doing a thorough clean, and then ensuring that only chairs and tables are out. So I'll open this back up to the board for a motion, conversation, however you want to, whatever you feel comfortable with now. I'll leave it to the board.
This is Brian. I got a question. Jerry had an interesting idea there about more monitors, and could we actually hire some senior citizens or somebody looking, because we're not asking anybody to be in harm's way. We're really asking almost to be a welcoming person at the gate and count how many people go in. Steve, is that a idea that could work? I mean, it wouldn't be a budget breaker, obviously, and it would put a level of control there that I would find valuable.
Yeah, the park monitor plan that we put together and that I submitted to the board on Tuesday of this week does not include anything above and beyond what we already had budgeted. So we were utilizing Pete, who does facility setup, was already scheduled, he's full-time. We're utilizing the field complex monitor. So there wasn't a plus to the budget. It would have stayed static. If we add more people in, then we would need to adjust the budget for that.
But I think
it's doable. I mean, it's not.
I think we can both agree that
doable.
I think we can both agree that the monitors we're talking about here, hiring for, let's say, a couple weeks while we get this launched, is not a huge number.
No, it's not. It's just above and beyond what we had budgeted.
Agreed.
I'm happy to make a motion if the board will entertain it.
Kevin, give me one second. I want to repeat this to just, Ethan had made a comment about the artisan hot tub and the small splash pools and things like that. We have not been discussing any of those items, just as quick clarification. So this is specific to our pools only. And then once we actually receive what our decision is as a board, we will forward that on to Artisan Club as well as to other condos and apartments, so they're aware. I will let you know that my understanding is hot tub is not to, I don't believe hot tubs are supposed to be open now just by the CDC, but is that correct, Steve?
That is correct. And
Okay.
The Artisan management and has discussing with their committee, and they've been discussing or sharing with us, and the CROA board's been made aware of that. They're not considering opening up their hot tub, just the pool. And they're looking to CROA to kind of set these guidelines and share that information with them.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kevin. I apologize. I just want to make sure that I made those two comments. Go ahead. It's all yours.
No worries. Prior to making this comment, I do want to go ahead and disclose that there are pools within Celebration, the apartments, et cetera, that are open at this time, as well as neighboring communities and so on. And as I do make a motion to open the pools, please keep in mind that you're not required to attend the pool. So if you, of course, are not comfortable being amongst that environment, you are more than welcome to avoid those environments. With that being said, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to open the CROA pools on Monday, May 11th. I would like to go ahead and do several things within this motion. Those pools will operate at a 50% bathing capacity as indicated on this form. These pools will have pool furniture, tables and chairs only, and no loungers. And these pools will have increments of 2 hours at management's discretion, with a 1-hour close down and cleaning of the facilities. And lastly, I would like to go ahead and ensure there is an at-risk area as determined by management at minimum of 2 days per week. And I will allow management to go ahead and further describe what at-risk fully means.
Do I have a second?
So that we can talk, I'll second it.
Thank you.
Before you move any further with it, Kevin, do you want to add to your motion how you want it staffed? The schedule that I submitted.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. I would like to go ahead and ensure that there is a park monitor style, whether that's actually from your department or whatever you'd like it to be, somebody that is keeping data and ensuring the pools do not exceed the bathing capacity during that time frame.
Is there for a specific time, Kevin? Because right now our pools are going to be open until 10 o'clock. So is there a specific time frame you'd like to have that staffed?
If management expresses that they cannot staff the pool, I'm happy to go ahead and limit the hours for the time being.
What if I take some of my existing staff for the first couple days and just staff without hiring, and if we determine that there's a large capacity and we're going to need additional staff, then we could hire at that point. Would that work for the board?
So when you talk hire, you mean hire some people for a couple of weeks on a part-time basis the way we talked?
Right. So we have a schedule that we submitted that management feels gives a sufficient coverage, but Nikki, myself, and Cameron were part of the equation of roving. We could put ourselves at the pool for the first few days just to ensure that we're keeping those capacity numbers where they need to be. I mean, if we're opening on Monday, logic would say that our first few days is when we'll get the huge impact because people have been inside for the past month. You know, by the end of the week, we should have a better understanding of how busy these pools are going to be.
Well, let's ask a fair question. Can you be ready to make all these changes by Monday, or would we be smarter giving it another day or two?
The changes that Kevin, yeah, the changes that Kevin, I'm sorry, Brian, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
That's all right. I just, you know, if Monday's 5/11, but if we need 5/12 or 5/13 to make sure that we've got the final stuff organized, I would rather take an extra day or two and do it right. And I would encourage us, it's not a budget breaker at all, to hire a couple of part-time people for a short term. It's just not a lot of money to help. Go ahead, Kevin.
Would it, just for numbers and dollars and cents, would it make more sense to potentially offer overtime for a week over hiring additional staff?
Yeah, I mean, the budget breaking isn't as big a concern as the cost involved in the hiring and just these would be seasonal employees for 2 weeks. If we're talking about 2 weeks, I think that this is something we can work out, and everything that Kevin motioned here, we can make it work starting on Monday.
One person had asked about, can you please, and Kevin specifically also, please define at risk.
Yeah, at risk would be the senior population, just very similar to Publix, that they have their own time to utilize the pool prior to other folks coming in and utilizing it, and those that may have compromised immune systems that want to utilize the pool.
So 50, are we doing 55 or 60 over? What's the age demographic that you're?
55 and over, I believe, is what is pretty standard right now. But we're not going to be checking IDs and those kind of things to utilize it. We're going to have to be, again, residents coming on the honor of that they're at risk and not utilizing the pools when they're not supposed to.
Okay, perfect. Is that something that's reasonable, board, regarding the at-risk population?
Good.
Yeah, we can't ask them what their at-risk category is. That's not really
correct.
No, yeah, that could cause us a lot of problems.
I agree.
There was a comment out here about splash pools.
About what?
Yeah, those kiddie pools should probably stay closed. Those smaller little kiddie pools, it's too hard to separate.
Agreed.
So as of right now, we'll have the pools will be monitored by staff. If they determine that they need more help, then they can go from there. But right now, it looks like for 2 weeks, you're just going to you're going to do it within your staffing as is. Is that accurate, Steve?
Yes, and if I have any
Okay.
issues with that, I'll know by the end of the day and I can get back to the board. But the motion that Kevin laid out, 50% capacity, tables and chairs only, 2-hour increments, we close for an hour for cleaning, that risk on Monday and Wednesday from 7 to noon, and then we'll have somebody on site on the pools during those time frames. The evening hours are probably going to be the most difficult, but I'll take a look at that with Nikki.
Then close them earlier.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, rather than having you to make that decision at the last minute, let's talk about what is a reasonable closing time. We can always readdress this when we get 2, 3, 4 weeks out and are wiser.
Right.
I agree with you, Brian.
Yeah, we might only be able to open a couple pools in the evening then and utilize the evening monitors that we have, but we'll look at, I mean, there's a hiring process involved and drug screening and all of that. So hiring for a couple weeks may be challenging for us.
So why don't we take the hours of 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and make 10 p.m. earlier?
Make it, yeah, I would say, why don't we go with like an 8 p.m. closing? That still gives people that, you know, are working a couple hours at night if they want to use it. I mean, 10 p.m. is pretty late right now. I mean, even Walmart's closing at 8:30.
Yeah, really,
yeah.
I haven't done the math here, but if it's open 7 to 9 and closed 9 to 10, 10 to noon, closed from 1 to 2, 2 to 4 closed, 4 to 5, 5 to 7, close at 7. With the 2-hour, 1-hour thing we just did there, 7 p.m. is close time.
Kevin, go
I
ahead.
do have one addition that I would share. And for full disclosure, the closest pool to my property would be Spring Park, and that is not why I'm saying this. But I will say that if we are going to start closing pools, perhaps we should go ahead and close those pools that have lower capacity to perhaps increase the best use of that staff for monitoring. So if it's during the day type of a situation.
Kevin, I would say let's put them all on the same hours for now, and then we'll add on as we have, once we have some learnings in place, like Brian said, then we can add some more hours on. I had sent it to Steve. I don't know, I mean, this is just an out there question. Can high school kids use this for volunteer hours?
We can as a volunteer, but it would probably be more just to keep track, to count numbers. I mean, I would never want to ask a high schooler to be in a situation where they're asking a resident for ID or any of those types of things. It'd be more of accounting.
Can I just really quick, my concern with having residents, and I like the idea of having resident volunteers and having high school students. I'm afraid of having legal liability when we don't have employees actually doing this. So I think I like the ideas, but I'm really concerned about going down a path of some legal liability that we don't want to open ourselves up to.
Vanessa, this is David. With
Please,
that,
go ahead, David.
if there are any staff present, we need to be very, very clear. These are not lifeguards. Our signage needs
lifeguards
to
on duty.
always say no lifeguards on duty. Even if there's someone with a town hall shirt, they are not a lifeguard.
The signage that's out there will remain.
One thing we discussed during our group was that having people outside of the gated area would at least delineate the fact that they're not actually here to guard. That was something that we also discussed. Any other comments from the board? And then I see you have your hand raised, Celia. So give me, I'll get to you. Any other comments?
I got one comment. This is Brian. So I just did this on paper, so I didn't screw it up. 7 to 9 open, 9 to 10 clean, 10 to 12 open, 12 to 1 clean, 1 to 3 open, 3 to 4 clean. That would leave 4 to 6 as open, which means we would actually close the pool at 6 p.m. So we'd be open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then that would allow staff to do a final cleaning at 6 p.m. So if Kevin wants to amend his motion, and I did the second, I mean, I think that is a fair time frame, and we can review that in 2 to 3 weeks as we get wisdom.
I'm happy to amend. I would just like to encourage management to continue keeping us posted daily with what the activity is, and I'd like to put it on the agenda for next Friday as just a brief update.
I'm fine with that.
Any other comments from the board before I open up for Celia?
Yes, I still remain concerned with opening as we do not see the decline yet. We're supposed to be following 2 weeks of decline of cases. That's not what we're seeing. And so I'm just concerned about moving now.
Okay, thank you. Celia, you are unmuted.
Okay, I just want to say again about the residents bringing guests in. We're going through all of this process to keep our residents safe. And with the capacity, even though there's not a lot of people that utilize the pools all the time, but now everybody's going to be coming out. We don't need people bringing guests in to fill up that capacity.
Thank you.
In place of a resident. And do the gates lock on the pools when the pool hours are done?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Brian.
I got one question, I guess, in response to Celia's statement. I'm just thinking here. I know of people who have got adult children who have come to Florida to work out of garage apartments. So if a person who has a adult son or daughter down here from Georgia, that person wants to go swimming, how do we, I mean, they would seem to have a legitimate right. So I'm, in theory, I agree with Celia. I'm trying to think about how the heck you actually enforce it for the reality of what we've got going on. So that's a question I'm asking.
Steve, legally, can we restrict the guests of an owner if we're allowing the owner as well? Or is that part of their rights?
The board can set the rules, and especially during state of emergency, you can set the rule however you want. Enforcement's a whole different issue, though. I mean, we're going to have to take residents' word for it. And again, if it becomes abused situation, we'll be coming back to the board recommending we close the pools down.
I'm comfortable with just saying that guests from, non-family. I don't know how to handle that though. Thoughts?
Well,
Can we request it as celebration?
Yeah, we can encourage at this time during phase 1 reopening that it's residents only, and then as they're coming into the pool, we can just ensure, or ask residents only. And people are going to say, yeah, residents only, but I mean, again, we have to be respectful of each other for this to continue to work. This is a phase 1 opening. Hopefully we can move quickly through phase 1 and get into the next phases. But right now, I think it's got to be people honoring what we're asking.
Thank you. There was a comment from Steve Northridge too about requiring anybody entering the state for quarantine for 14 days not go to the pools for residents. I think actually that's a reasonable request for any of our facilities. If you're in quarantine, please don't come to our facilities. So my hope is
I believe that's the definition of quarantine.
Yeah. So I would, I'm not sure how we would enforce that, but to your point, Steve, yes, I would hope that they would do that. So that should, I'll open that up to the board as to how we can actually monitor that, because we as a board do not receive lists that have confidential information like that. That's not something that we have. But I do.
Vanessa, I want to add too, though, anybody that's paying attention to the news is seeing, there's security guards getting pushed into lakes. There's people being shot at. It's just not a position that management and staff can put themselves in. I mean, there's a security risk there. So again, we're going to monitor and we're going to ask people to abide by the rules. And if the rules are being violated over and over again, our recommendation is going to be back to the board to close the pools back down.
Totally agree. So we have a motion and a second on the table. There's been some amended emotions to that. With regards to the hour cleaning following 2 hours, we've amended our hours to 6 p.m. close. Anything else that we want to, making sure that the guests, right, the family guests are family only. however you want to phrase that. But again, it's going to have to be, how do we monitor that? Or do we monitor it? It's just going to be an honor system.
Vanessa, do you mind if I just go down the list one more time?
Absolutely.
And I think there's a board member that wanted to add something to the list.
Yeah.
ahead.
See, all right, before you do, I still think the use is too high. The villages have had to shut their pools down because it was a limit of 10 people and they exceeded it right away. I think we're adding so many things to this. Do we need to consider tabling it and looking at another week? I'm sorry, I just feel it's too soon. If there was a second to table, the table does take precedent over motion.
I would second that if that's.
Well, we need to let this motion die first before, I mean.
No.
I personally, I'm not in favor of closing this motion down. We can amend the dates or whatever, but I think that the process, whether we choose Monday or we choose someplace else, yeah, I think that
Vanessa,
right now we have a motion, we have a second, and discussion.
Vanessa, do you mind if Vanessa, real quick, I believe Debbie's correct though. If there's a motion to table, you have to, in a second, you have to address that first. So the board needs to vote on that table motion. Yeah. And if it does not pass, then you can continue on with the other motion.
Even when there's already a motion that's on the table? Okay, that's fine.
Yes,
Thank
because
you.
we've had this happen in the past and we had to address the
then we'll
table
go ahead.
motion first.
So we have a motion from Debbie to table it, and we have a second from David. I'm just going to go down the list. Are you a yay or a nay, Kevin, on tabling?
Nay.
David, I'm assuming is a yes.
Mine would be a yes for tabling.
Okay, Brian, yay or nay?
Nay.
Marianne, yay or nay?
Okay.
Did you say nay? I'm sorry.
No, yes, I would like to table because I would like to look at the dates
yes.
more.
Okay, you are a yes. You would like to table it. Diana, a table?
Nay, I don't want to table.
And Debbie, you're a yes or a no?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm a no. I'm not in favor of tabling it. 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 4 no's and three yeses. David, Marianne, and Debbie were yeses for tabling it. We'll resume our original motion.
So would you like me to just go down the list just to make sure that we have it correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and so since Kevin was the original, who seconded that motion?
Brian.
Okay, so if Kevin and Brian can just clarify or confirm that this is correct, we're going to request that it's residents that are using the pool. We are going to open on the 11th. Kiddie pools will stay closed. We will operate at 50% capacity, tables and chairs only. 2 hours with the pool opening 7 to 9, and then there'll be an hour for closing for cleaning in between, with the final set 2 hours for swim time from 4 to 6. Pools close at 6 for cleaning. At risk will be Monday, Wednesday from 7 to noon, and then we'll have somebody on site at the pools during the open time frames, at least for the first week.
Is that accurate, Kevin and Brian?
I believe that is accurate. Signage doesn't have to be part of this, but I do know that Diana mentioned that she'd just like to go ahead and ensure signage is proper. But I think that's all the notes that I have on my end.
That's all the notes I had too.
Okay. Any further discussion by the board? Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a roll call again. Kevin, are you yes or a no? Oh,
Yes.
and I'm sorry, and there's a question about daily report from management too, to the board from the residents. Is that something you want? Okay, I think that was something you mentioned also, right, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay.
And we
just
have
a quick email to the board.
Yeah, we have a monitor checklist, and we'll fill that out with numbers that are attending the pool, and we'll get that to the board at the end of each day.
Thank you. So Kevin, a yes or a no?
Yes.
David, a yes or a no?
No, it's too early.
Totally understand. Brian, yes or no?
Yes.
Marianne, yes or no?
Before I say my vote, I'm going to say I'm doing this with tremendous reservations because this is counter to everything I'm seeing, hearing, and doing in my professional world around these sorts of things, and with the guidelines about where we are. However, I understand that my role is to represent the residents, so I will vote yes, but I'm gonna just say honestly, it's against my better judgment.
Thank you, Mary Ann. I appreciate your concern on that. Diana, yes or no?
Yes.
Debbie, yes or no?
And again, it's a very difficult vote. My concern is being a member of the Patient Advocacy Board at the hospital, my concern for the residents, and I just felt it needed a little, and so I'm a no. I'm sorry.
It's okay. And so is the motion passes. David and Debbie are no's. Please make sure as residents that the due diligence of the board, you have to vote the way you believe is the best way to proceed. So this is by no means meant to put any board member on the spot. It's our due diligence. This is something that is passionate to a lot of people on both ends. The fact that we are opening this does not mean we do not care about safety. We're trying to do it. We're trying to do it carefully. We're trying to do it diligently and as responsible as possible. So I totally respect the board members that as voting the way they feel they need to in their best interest and in their personal beliefs. So I think that's important. Thank you very much to the board for doing this. It's a hard choice.
Vanessa, you were a yes, right?
I was a yes, yes. There were only 2 no's.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Vanessa, I just want to echo what you said. I've worked with these board members that are here for most of my time in celebration for the 6 years, and every one of the board members here care about the community very much. They do not just make these decisions without really taking it to heart, and they're all volunteers. So if you can completely respect their decisions, they're doing what they think is best for the community. I also ask that you respect staff that are out at the pools. If we're at capacity and we ask you not to come in, please respect that. This is the way that we can start phasing in and getting reopened. We all want this to pass. We all want this to be done and get back to normal. But this is the best that we can do right now. So please respect staff as they're asking you to follow these guidelines.
Yeah,
Totally agree, Steve. Go ahead, David.
Just echo Vanessa. Thank you for that. And Steve, thank you for that. That's why we're a board of 7. We come from different walks of life. As Dr. Barr said, he's the only one with the medical experience who is on the call right now or self-identified that way. But we all come at this from different walks of life, and all of us are trying to make our best judgments as hard as it is. And I think Mary Ann said that very beautifully. And it's hard, but and that's why we are a board of 7, and we discuss things openly and try to make our best judgment collectively. We think the group wisdom is better than any one person's wisdom.
Thank you. So on that, and just to be clear, Steve, I believe that the board direction is if there's an issue, close it down. If if we can't clean it for whatever reason, if there's a violation of it, close it down.
Yeah, and again, we'll be monitoring. We have a checklist. I'll get that to you all at the end of every day. But if I see really major issues, Vanessa, you'll be the first to know, and then we'll get it to the rest of the board, and we'll make the right choices moving forward.
Very good. Thank you so much.
And Steve, just for the sake of repeating one more time, please make sure camera coverage is working well as you guys go through early next week and test everything out.
I hear you loud and clear, and Patrick's on this call. He hears you loud and clear also. So we got to make sure that those cameras are all on the pools and that they're all operating appropriately.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. So on that, then, so our agenda item for the pool reopening plan is done. Basketball court reopening plan.
Yeah. So going back to an earlier comment that was made that management can't make recommendations. I just want to clarify. I didn't say that management cannot make recommendations. Management has made recommendations, but management ultimately doesn't get the vote. It comes down to, as David said, 4 of the board members vote. We move that direction. We advise. Sometimes I advise passionately. Sometimes I give a minimal advice, and I wait for some guidance from the board of directors. So when it comes to reopening, I'm sure you've seen from these past few meetings, I feel strongly about reopening as quickly as we can. And I completely respect the board's decision if they say, let's minimize reopening as we see more. I don't know that there's a right answer right now. We're all trying to figure this out. So when it comes to basketball court reopening, I think there's 2 options. We can put the rims back up, and we can ask residents to only shoot at 6-foot distancing and use groups of less than 10. But if games start happening and bodies are rubbing together and bouncing off each other, then the courts can't be open. So the decision's back to the board on this. Do you want to try it and give the residents an opportunity to do shooting only, or do we just leave them closed?
I can't come up with any way that you can have the basketball hoops up and open and not expect contact. I just don't see how that one can work. I'm just throwing it out for everybody. I mean, it's the nature of basketball to contact.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the
For a
nature.
game, it certainly is.
That's a tough one. It's basketball. I mean, I can't see them staying 6 feet apart, so.
Anyone else? Board comment?
Yeah, I've seen some discussion of that with American College Health Association and CDC recommending not moving forward with that at this point.
Anyone else?
I would make the motion to keep the basketball courts closed at this time.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Diana. Discussion? All in favor? I'll do roll call again. Kevin, are you a yes to keep it closed?
Yes.
David, yes or no?
Yes.
Brian, yes or no?
Keep it closed.
So you're a yes to keep it closed. Marianne, yes or no?
Yes.
Diana, yes or no?
Yes.
Debbie, yes or no?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. So 7 yeses to keep the basketball court closed. Okay. The next is farmers market.
Okay, I will make a recommendation again on this. I don't see how we can open a farmer's market downtown without having large gathering of people. So I would recommend that we remain closed on farmer's market until we can get to the next phase.
Do I have a motion on the table for keeping the market closed?
So moved.
So moved.
Marianne is a motion to, and Kevin was the second, is that correct?
Either way.
I heard Marianne's voice first. Discussion?
You know, the Winter Garden Farmers Market has been open on Wednesdays and Saturdays. They've set the tents up in farther apart, and there's very few there. They've been able to do it. I don't know if anyone else has been up there, and I know I think the same company runs them that runs us, right?
It does. I believe it does. And I've had conversation with them. I know the governor never shut the farmers market down. It was considered an essential service. I think the situation still remains though. If we're lining the streets of downtown, there's no way that we can keep people 6 feet apart during these farmers markets. I mean, if we get the normal crowds that we have, there's going to be a large group of people downtown. And I know that a lot of the downtown residents have expressed.
Yeah, I think they have also just limited it to food. Looked like when I was there, just food vendors only, not the crafts, and just actual food vendors.
What's their spacing like? I mean, I think for us, it's kind of a gauntlet. I haven't been over there to that one in a long time, but I just feel like we're maybe compressing the body space a little more with where ours is located.
I mean, I think their spacing is similar. I think it's more of a square than a long, road like we, that we use. I think we are more put together, but I'm just putting it out there that they've been able to make it work. And I think they're supporting the local farmers that are trying to sell their crops and sell their fruit and vegetables. But I do understand the concern of opening that back up downtown. But I think it's something we need to continue to look at moving forward.
Thank you. Any other board members? And then I'll open it up to Laurel. Board members, any comments? Go ahead. Yep.
My only final comment is I believe the farmers market is actually underneath CJC. I'm not positive. I would have to double check that. But regardless, I do think that the farmers market, while I love it and I shop there daily and I miss my produce from there, or not daily, weekly, I think it attracts a lot of out-of-town visitors at this time. And that's something that we are trying to limit to the best of our ability.
And this is, David, I agree. I think it's too early to reopen. And then if we did some reopening, we may want to phase that with just food vendors, but not at this time.
Sorry, I got my lawn guys right outside my window. I'm inclined to agree with Kevin and with David also. Laurel, I'm going to unmute you and you can speak up. Go ahead, Laurel.
Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yes, you're good.
So I appreciate again, just sort of thinking about, inviting concentrations of crowds, et cetera. I think to Diana's point, I think my only thing that I was going to suggest at whatever phase you consider reopening it, and I know there'd been some discussion back and forth about spreading it out and expanding it along French Street, and my understanding, so that's also a Sonoa Road, so perfectly able, I think, to be done, and especially with lower traffic rate that there is at the moment. So I was just simply going to suggest that as something to be looked at. I know in the past there had been some debate on whether or not it needed to be lakeside and on CDD property, which is a whole other argument in terms of not, nonprofits, it's public property. So, you kind of can't generate income on those under CDD rules. But I personally would say if you're going to consider it down the road, there are ways to do sort of a single entrance, spread the booths, expand in the T point down onto front. You have quite a stretch of Sonoa Road, et cetera. So those were just some suggestions when and if you get to the point of considering it that I would appreciate you looking at, because I agree. It is very crowded when it's just on Market Street. So thank you.
Thank you, Laurel. Any other comments? I'll call the vote. So motion to keep the, good gosh, the farmer's market closed. Sorry, my brain went haywire. Kevin, yes or no?
Yes.
Yep, thank you. David, yes or no?
Yes, keep them closed.
Brian, yes or no?
Yes, keep closed.
Mary Ann, keep it closed.
Closed.
Diana, yes or no?
I'll say closed, but I'd like to see it on the agenda again next week.
Okay. Debbie, yes or no?
Closed? Yes.
Yes. And I'm keeping it closed also. Motion passes. And I agree, we do need to, I think it's something that we need to continue discussing. All right, the next item on the agenda is summer breakout camp.
Nikki and I have had lots of conversations about this. There is a way that we can keep the groups of kids to about 9 kids per group per counselor. And then with the counselor, so that's 10. We can spread the groups out amongst the open field, amongst the playground, amongst the pool, and then the building at Heritage Hall. But the biggest problem I think we have with summer breakout is that we're at a time where if we're going to do it, we have to hire counselors. But there's just so much uncertainty with what June is going to look like. Or are the numbers going back up? Are they going down? So on this one, this is a definitely uncharted territory. I know we want to try and provide something for kids to do over the summer, but there's just so much uncertainty. There's a way we can do it and spread people apart, but if a thunderstorm comes, which does every day during the summer, everyone's going to have to be back in the building. So again, we'll go to the board. I mean, my recommendation the last time we talked about this was because of the uncertainty and the timing of having to hire staff, I would recommend that we close it at this point in time. But I don't know that we're going to know what things are going to look like. And remember, the school ends in about 3 weeks. So summer camp's right around the corner, and we really need to make a decision today. So I wish I could give you better guidance on that.
Board, I'll open it up. Let's see, I see Diana and then Brian.
Would you consider, I mean, I'm concerned about it because I don't think we're going to be able to social distance. My concern is that the parents, we got to let them know. I mean, if they're counting on this for childcare while they're working, we need to let them know right away it's not going to be on the agenda. So, and I don't know how we're going to be able to make it safe and keep the kids apart. Also, I think a lot of the things you planned on doing, I mean, it's a really cool schedule. It looks like a fun camp, So I think a lot of that stuff is going to be available to you.
Well, and two of the field trips had closed, and Nikki had to kind of scramble to try and find two other activities. So it is a possibility that as we get closer to June, more of those field trips close, and then it's more daycare on site than it is a summer camp. So, yeah, and I agree with you, Diana, 100%. We have to know today, because we have to be able to if we're going to do a camp and we're going to do a good quality camp, we need a decision today so that we can plan accordingly. If not, we need to, and we've been interviewing for summer camp counselors, telling them you're qualified, but we need you to hold until we can make a decision. And I think we're just about to that point where we have to make that decision.
Thank you. Brian and then Debbie.
Yeah, I had pushed hard last week that I wanted to try to see if we could open it. It sounds like you spent a week really challenging that. What I'm hearing you say then is there's a tremendous amount of risk. Whether you talk about events being open, whether you talk about where you can move kids if there's a thunderstorm, which it is Florida. So your recommendation is no. Is that clear?
Well, as I've said before, I mean, there's no way that CROA board or management in town can keep anybody safe. That's just not possible. It's not what we're here to do. We cannot keep you safe. We can put best practices in place to wipe things down and keep things as clean as possible. But we can't keep you safe. There's a lot of uncertainty for June for summer camp, and we're talking about bringing a bunch of kids together, even though we have space to spread them out. But if it rains, and it will rain, they all have to come into the building. So yes, there is some risk and some uncertainty there that makes this even more challenging of a decision. And when it becomes this challenging of a decision, I err on the side of caution.
Agree. Did Nikki take a look at the CDC's camp recommendations, and what's coming out of the American Camp Association are pretty stringent. And you know, if what we're talking about here is risk reduction, I would have to, well, no surprise, everyone, I think it's a terrible idea to hold day camp right now.
Because we are in the middle, we are actually discussing something without a motion. But
oh my
I
gosh,
thought we were yeah, that's okay. Well, Steve was commenting, and then I kind of opened it up for comments and discussion and things like that. So that's fine. Debbie, since we already started on this path, Debbie, do you want to have a comment, or do you want a motion before you have a comment?
No, I just want to comment. I just want to thank Nikki and staff. They worked so hard on this. It was a great plan. No one could really foresee this, and maybe perhaps some of the best candidates' potentials could be moved to the pool area for a short time. And
that's a great point, Debbie. I'm glad you said that. Now that we're talking about that, maybe we can get some of them out to the pools. I have staff emailing me as we're talking, saying I can take a couple shifts too. So I think we'll be able to get the pools covered.
Thank you so much, Steve.
Perfect. On that note, do I have a motion from one of the board?
I'd like to make a motion, but I will make a discussion after. Go ahead, Diana.
Oh, I'm sorry. I would make a motion that we cancel summer breakout for the season.
I'll second.
Motion to cancel.
And I'd like to make
Second
discussion.
Yeah, thank you. Second from Kevin. And Brian, I know you were in the middle of talking there, but you were unmuted, but you were muted. Did you have a comment, Brian?
Oh, I was going to make the motion when I was on mute, so go ahead.
My only comment that I would add, and I hope Steve can clarify a little bit, for the length, two specific questions. What is the length of the summer camp? The number of programs that there are? What are those two items?
Nikki, you're the summer camp expert, so I'm going to ask you if you can jump on real quick. And I think 9 or 10 weeks, and just a little bit about that discussion.
And then I'll actually have Nikki this in my follow-up. When she does follow-up, would it be possible to go ahead and postpone at this time by a month, perhaps, where we might be able to reevaluate? Perhaps it might only be a 4-week program. So I'll hear Nikki's expertise on.
So camp is for 9 weeks. We have the camp from 8:30 to 5 p.m. and each week of camp is on a themed basis. And on Fridays they go on their field trips. For camp, we were trying to separate them in age groups per se, so they all weren't on top of each other. But just in my recommendation in regards to shortening camp, it's kind of rough because a lot of these folks who we're trying to hire, they're looking for a full-time kind of summer job. So I honestly don't think I could find someone just for 4 weeks just to do camp.
And if there was the possibility of expanding pool monitors, if you will, would that be something that we can consolidate almost as one unit? Just thinking out loud here.
That's a possibility, yeah.
Well, if the question is, can we hire those camp counselors and utilize them as pool monitors up until we have some understanding of whether camp is going to go or not? Is that correct, Kevin?
Yes.
Okay. It's certainly something we can look at. It's just determined whether or not those folks, because as Nikki said, I've ran camps. That's how I started my career in Parks and Recreation, was running camps. I think a lot of these folks are college students or they're teachers, and they're looking for some sort of guaranteed revenue over the summer. And the pool monitors will be, smaller shifts than what they would get for summer camp. So we could certainly ask those that we've interviewed and talk to them about bringing them on seasonal for the summer as pool monitors, and if camp runs later. It would be completely up to them on whether they wanted to do something like that.
I'm only thinking out loud, seeing different options.
No, I get it.
I like the idea. I mean, they're not all going to say yes, but if a few of them said, yeah, we'd have a real interest in hoping for a transition period through summer, I think it would be well spent as we really try to stay safe and control things that David and others talked about earlier.
So any further discussion from the board? David, go ahead.
Yeah. I know you have to have a decision today, and with a tremendous risk, and again, reading from the CDC, the tremendous risk of having a camp type event, 9 weeks for whatever it is, 8-9 hours a day. It seems like the best practice would be to say no. But at the same time, there may be some other compromise, maybe hire a limited number of people that initially could cover with some of the pools, but then be used with some other sporadic, not 8 hours a day, 5 days a week programming. But there may be some other things that could be offered for the youth. Again, it's not a 5-day-a-week commitment for 9 weeks, but it could be some sporadic, with the expertise of those youth and then the staff, the professional staff with youth programming. So just don't know what that would look like, but just maybe there's some compromise in the middle, but to not offer the 9-week camp.
So the motion is to cancel, and there was a second on that, correct? Or do we ever have a motion?
Yes, you had a second.
Okay.
Kevin was a second.
Kevin seconded.
So here's my personal thought, and then I'll open it up to everybody. My daughter's in college. They have made all summer classes virtual. There are no in-line. They are keeping everybody out of class. You have classes haven't even resumed, per comment earlier by Marianne. The CDC is recommending, if you have not already convened anything, do not start now. So I'm in line with that same thought. I like the idea of trying to get kids involved and get that engagement. I'm just really afraid that we are putting ourselves as a board at risk of going down that path because we are actually engaging in this rather than opening up facilities for the community to make their own good judgment. So this is a concerted effort by the board to actually go into these, this. So that's my personal fear in this. So any further discussion? Okay, then I'll call the vote. Kevin, yes or no to cancel summer camp?
I don't want to, but I feel it's the best interest, so yes.
David, yes or no to cancel?
Yes to cancel.
Brian, yes or no to cancel?
Yes to cancel.
Marianne, yes or no to cancel?
Yes, to cancel.
Diana, yes or no to cancel?
Yes, cancel.
Debbie, yes or no to cancel?
Yes to cancel. And again, I appreciate Nikki's work and hope some of these hirees can be used for something. Thank you.
Totally agree. And I'm a yes also. Yeah, that's not a decision I don't think anyone on this board ever wanted to make, but yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately. But at least now the parents have a have a baseline as to what they need to do for the summer. So
Vanessa,
the next.
Vanessa, if I may.
Go ahead. Yes, go ahead, David.
All of this is in flux. Just yesterday afternoon, American College Health Association released 20-page set of guidelines for colleges. One of the big questions with colleges is whether to open residence halls in the fall. So and you know, I'm already aware of colleges closing their doors permanently. So this is hard. It's all in flux, and these are hard decisions, and we're trying to forecast the future, which we really can't do. So we're again trying to do risk management and trying to do as best practice when this is uncharted territory for all of us.
Agree. Thank you, David. Fireworks. Moving now, just for the record, for everybody that's on here, fireworks was for 4th of July was canceled at the last meeting. So I will open this up now to whether or not we want to move fireworks to Founders Day. Discussion, comments, Steve, motion.
Well, I know that you're going to have an executive session next week sometime to discuss the actual contract. But from a CROA or CCS standpoint, CCS first, the fireworks were canceled for 4th of July, so that's done. The question is, do you want to do them on Founders Day? And there was no money budgeted at all to do those fireworks. And it doesn't look like Lexington wants to participate in fireworks on Founders Day. So I don't know how much discussion there is.
I'm agreeing with you on that. So right now we do have an executive session that we're going to be planning next week to discuss the contract and what our options are. Debbie, you had a comment?
Can't hear you.
I do not hear her. Debbie, if we can't hear you, can you unmute yourself?
Did you want to do the motion first or just have comments?
Well, again, I don't even know if you need to vote on anything. I think you just go to your executive session.
You don't have to do anything. We can just move on to the next thing. Like I said, there was just, I'll give you 1 second here, Dan.
I'm sorry, I had trouble.
Go ahead, Debbie. Now I can hear you.
And you know, the fireworks are wonderful. I do love the fireworks, and I think any concern with that was also we just don't know in November, and I think it was just a very tough discussion. And I just respect everyone for realizing we are going day by day. And again, just real quick before I forget on the polls, Steve, I know the CDC is changing sometimes hourly and definitely daily. So I appreciate manager, you as our management company, keeping an eye on that in case anything changes. We need to, again, these plans are very fluid of anything we do. And thank you all for working through a very tough situation.
I'll make a motion for this item. And I'd like to make the motion to not adjust Founders Day past what's already been scheduled. And that means no additions and no decreases at this time. That would be my motion.
At this time, but that doesn't stop you guys from making adjustments to that event in the future.
Correct.
Do you have a second?
I mean, I'll second it for purposes of conversation. I mean, I really just, we need to have next week's meeting and we don't have information. I struggle with even items 3A and 3B about how we think about the future when we're still trying to figure out how to deal with 2 weeks from now.
Dan, I'm not sure, I can't seem to find, oh, there you are, Dan. I'm gonna unmute you here. Dan, go ahead.
Thank you. 709 Bloom. Just want to say, any large events before there's a vaccine, there's no way that an event that's going to draw a large crowd of people can be considered until then. It doesn't matter if there's testing. Nothing matters until there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And I think, you know, for fireworks or any large event, the board needs to realize that you can't sponsor any, you can't condone any. It's something that's going to be in place for a long time, and that's going to be fireworks. It's going to be a lot of things. Memorial Day, maybe since that's a smaller event you can get away with and space people out. But to even consider fireworks or events that are going to draw 50, 100, draw people from out of town, you can't even think about that. I mean, that's at least into 2021 until that's even going to be on the table. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Further conversation from the board? Okay. So, Kevin, your motion was to?
For the sake of, I'll withdraw my motion, and I would actually go ahead and then motion to table until next Friday after a legal executive discussion.
Thank you. I'll second that one. I think it's good. Brian's agreeing with that too as a second. So Brian is the official second to Kevin's amended motion, which is to put on the agenda for next week and discuss then. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, very good. Sorry. Okay, so now future meeting dates, fall events.
I'd like to make a motion to table these till next week.
Do you have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
Second from David.
Sorry, what was the motion? I just didn't hear it clearly.
I'm sorry.
Postpone those last two. Just table this for next week.
Okay, thank you.
And I think that's reasonable based upon the fact we have an executive session that will cover this stuff. It's just a lot. I think, yeah, I'm fine with tabling it. We're past time and everything too. It's 11:30, and I'll do the same thing. Just all in favor of tabling?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Excellent.
Gerald,
So,
Vanessa, Jerry
I'm
Barr
sorry.
Jerry Barr has his
Oh.
hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. I can't see your hand up, Jerry. Oh, there you are. It didn't pop up on me. You are officially unmuted. Sorry about that, Jerry.
Okay. I just want to make two comments. When you have your executive session, remember that the fall is coming and you will have concurrent flu season. And two, I think personally, it is, I think, folly to consider any big events, and I would concur with the gentleman that made that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, so just a couple of quick wrap-ups. Remember, our next meeting will be via Zoom next Friday, the 15th. We are going to continue with this for Friday Zooms until we as a board decide it's safe to get back together again. So just keep your Friday mornings at 10 o'clock blocked off. I love having the participation. We really want to continue with this. And again, just to reiterate for those that have not been on this before, we're going to be continuing to do Zoom incorporated within our regular meetings, even once we actually go back to town hall, because this has been it's been very, very positive from the community. We love having the participation. So thank you all. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Oh, go ahead, Brian.
I got a question. I just want to follow up. I've been reading the comments. I just heard Gerald's comment. Are a lot of communities canceling everything for 2020 and calling and just saying we're not going to do anything till 2021? I mean, I read different things, but and I'm not asking for a long conversation here, but I'd be curious to see if that's actually getting adopted or if people are on a wait and hold thing for the fall. I would just find that valuable.
Can I make a suggestion on that? I think that's something that actually should be discussed. Can we put that on the agenda for next week? What are your thoughts on that, board?
I'm fine with that.
That way we can do a little more research on it. I'd like to have a little better idea on what's going on around the area. Is that reasonable, board?
Yes, that's reasonable.
Perfect. So we'll go ahead and add that to the agenda for next week. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion
Second,
from Brian. Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you, David. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Have a terrific weekend. Thank you all board for a very productive morning. Thank you residents for joining in. We love the participation. Have a
Thank
great
you,
day.
everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.